Hey guys, my name is Erin, and this is the Writer Scene. And today I'm going to be talking to you guys about how to choose a freelance editor. I basically have 10 tips that I figured out while trying to find an editor. Specifically, for me, I went and hired a freelancer from the website Upwork. I love that website. I've done freelance work on that website, so I do trust it and have some type of history with it. So, yes, most of these tips, some of them will be specific to Upwork itself, but I think they can be applied everywhere. Let's just jump into it. Let's just jump into it. The first tip is the amount of projects that the person has. And on Upwork, when people look at the job that you posted, they can sign up for it. And you can apparently, because I did not know this, you can see their entire work history on Upwork. And it'll have this like little, it'll have a highlighted word next to it or a dulled out word. It'll either be like highlighted in like light green where it'll say active, or there'll be a dulled section where it says finished. When I looked at the first few people who applied to be a freelance editor for Fragment, they only had one project. But I clicked on one person who applied. When I looked at it, it said that he had 13 jobs that he was currently doing. I can honestly say that I did not hire this person because my I didn't want my book baby, probably my best work so far, to be thrown into a pile of books that were also being edited at the same time. And I just wanted to know personally that the person who's editing my book has their full focus on it, and they don't have, all these other projects in mind while they're editing it. That was something that I had to look out for. And if you're not using Upwork, I would probably still ask if there's any other projects they're working on. I don't know about you guys, but that was it was a deal breaker for me specifically because 13 is way too many. Two or three would have been fine, but like 13 is you're doing too much at once. It's crazy. I also had a completely different person when they did their cover letter or whatever and sent me a message about wanting to work on my novel Fragment. Fragment is a fantasy novel, and what they put in their letter message to me, they put that my novel would be a welcome diversion from the nonfiction books they were working on. Not gonna lie, that made me feel some type of way because it's like I don't want you to be seeing my book as a book that you use to get away from your other books. I mean, like, just, I mean, I guess you're putting more attention on it, but you're still not giving it your full attention. And I think a part of me just felt like using it as a diversion just had some type of negative connotation to it. I can't really explain it, but that's kind of what happened. Don't call people's book a welcome diversion from your other stuff that you might be working on. Just don't do it. Okay. Tip number 2, check out their bio or their cover letter or their about them, whatever it's phrased as on their website, or the proposal as they're called on Upwork, or the cover letter, whatever it is. Check out their bio, read their bios, look for the spelling and the grammar and the punctuation, see what they're writing, because I had one woman, hers was just generalized, so hers started with dear novelist. She didn't even like bother to, put my name into it. She could have taken out the novelist part and, filled it in with my name. She didn't even bother to do that. She just copied and pasted it and sent it off. Also, I don't know why this happened, but I don't know if it's for like a humanizing or relatability factor, but I found that I read a lot of proposals where people were just like, and I like cats. Okay, that is great. You like cats. But what does that have to do with editing my book? I will never know. I just didn't see the need for it to be in the cover letter. And I think it was also really odd that a lot of people kept putting that in, their proposal and whatnot. I found it very strange. By the way, excuse this background. I am filming in the garage. It is 11:46 at night, and I gotta because people are sleeping. So yes, I do not recommend doing a generalized proposal or hiring anyone who does a generalized proposal. If you want to, that's fine. I'm not judging you. Just saying I wouldn't do it. Moving on to number three, which goes back to something that I just talked about spelling, but not just spelling about like the apostrophes and the commas, because funnily enough, right, I'm going through all these proposals that people have sent me, and I'm looking through them, and someone actually mistyped and misspelled my book title. Let that sink in for a moment. So my novel's called Fragment, and they typed in fragrance. And at first, I didn't want to, like, my initial reaction was to be like, oh, okay, they probably, filled out this form on, their phone. Maybe it auto corrected. And then I realized that okay, even if that is true, you didn't even bother to double check it before you sent it off. And if I recall correctly, I learned this today that even after you like send a message, you can actually edit it and change it or delete it altogether. And this person didn't do either of those things. So they didn't double check it, they mistyped it, and they didn't even correct it later. And when you're looking for an editor, that's just not something you want to find. I mean, you're expecting this person to thoroughly comb through, all the details, no matter what type of editor you're trying to get. You expect them to, get the details right. You want them to be, studying it and analyzing it and helping you out. You don't want them missing things like this. The title's like really important. It's freaking title, so it is what it is. Okay, moving on before I get stuck on that. Four, budget, budget. I won't name any prices that I think is good for an editor because there are people who pay editors, $10 fixed price or $10 an hour. There are people who pay editors $1,500 fixed price, and all these crazy things. And everyone has a different amount that they're willing to pay editors. So I'm not going to really be touching on that, but I definitely think that you should set a budget aside, narrow down your editors, because on Upwork people can make an offer of what they're willing to get paid for the job, because on Upwork you do post the job and how much you want to pay the person, but counter offers exist. So you can be putting up that you're willing to pay $75 and a person can still offer to do it for like $800 or 1,256. I think one person said. First of all, my book's not even that long, um, but yeah, definitely put a budget aside, and I think that will also help you filter through some of these editors that you will be looking into. Number five is a giant deal. I highly recommend it. I don't think I would hire an editor without it, like at all. And it is the sample edit. Okay, the sample edit for me and really for everyone. They should be doing this. They should be doing a sample edit. Now, there's a few ways that sample edits can go. You can either take a chunk from your novel, and by a chunk I mean a few pages, 3, 5, 8, or just the first chapter. That's kind of the way I did it. I gave like the first 700 words or something. I did like the first 2 or 3 pages of my novel because for me, I want to see specifically how they would approach my specific work. For other people, I have heard that they will, I want to say, like prompts or just random clippings off the internet and, send it off to this person for the sample edit, or they'll get a sample edit sample and send that off, and they'll see how they catch the mistakes in that. I don't see the point in that one. I'd rather see how they work with my stuff directly just so I can get a gist of how they're going to approach my style, my voice, and all of those things. So to break down the sample edit even more, because this is a huge selling point, like this is a huge thing when it comes to finding the perfect editor for your novel, is the style. How do they edit? Some people will use italics, some people will use 1,000 hyphens with internal dialogue. Some people will use a lot of commas. Some people will use the Oxford comma. Some people just like, there's a lot of things with the punctuation and the grammar. And if it seems like I'm emphasizing on spelling and grammar, that's because specifically I was looking for a line editor dash copy editor. So yes, I was looking for the really, really nitpicky details when it came to my work, like spelling and grammar and punctuation. Is a very big deal because in Fragment there is a bit of a, since my book does have royal characters, I do try to make them sound pretentious at times. And I would hate to get an editor that would try to change the way that my characters literally speak and the old time words they may choose to use throughout the novel. And you need them to kind of understand your characters, even though they're not a proofreader, they kind of still need to understand what you're trying to accomplish when you choose some of the words that you choose, what you're trying to get across. And obviously, that also plays in with voice as well. Another thing that I want to touch on with the style is this. I don't know if this has happened to other people who have gotten freelance editors for their novels, but I actually had someone who applied for the job rearrange the paragraphs in my sample edit. Remind you that the sample edit was not the entire first chapter, so they didn't know everything about the first chapter, but nonetheless, I don't want my editor at least rearranging entire paragraphs of my novel because, first of all, this is not the developmental edit stage at all. This is like the final stages of editing, and I wrote my book in the order that I wanted it in for, structural and foreshadowing purposes. And if you guys did not see my video, I will link it below. But I did outline my novel, so I know exactly where everything goes, and I don't need them, like I said, rearranging paragraphs. It's unnecessary. And then finally, when it comes to the sample edit, it is the types of edits. As I mentioned earlier, I was looking for a line dash copy editor, someone to fine comb through everything. And yet, the people who applied would take the sample edit, and when they edited it and sent it back, I realized that they were sending back developmental edits, and they would send back like proofreading, and it's like that's not what I want you to do. I want you to fix my grammar, not my storyline. That's a big deal because you want to make sure you're getting the right type of edits. You're paying for a very specific type of edit unless you're getting like a package where it's like all around edits. But for me, I was looking for something specific, and these people were pretty much telling me that they didn't know what type of editor that was, or they just weren't interested in doing that and they didn't really get it. Or maybe they're just not qualified to do these types of edits. Quite a few things on it. Number 6, qualifications. This one is kind of funny and interesting. So, of all the 27 people who applied to be an editor for this job, I had a lot of people who graduated from universities in what I believe was Colorado. Some were from Utah. Uh, some went to online schools. A lot of people have masters and bachelors and teaching degrees. A lot of teachers applied. We're not going to talk about that, but teachers, I don't. People think it gives them like leverage if they're teacher to edit, but a lot of people claim to be teachers when they sign up for editing jobs. So I don't know if it actually makes a difference because it would work if they were like the only person to say that, but like half of the people that apply were like, oh, and I'm also a teacher, so yeah, then it kind of like comes back down. It's not helpful. So yeah, some of them had bachelors, some of them had masters, some of them were teachers, some of them were even authors. And I will touch on that a little bit more in detail, but some of them were authors, and some people also think that that gives them more leverage, and they think that that qualifies them to copy edit or line edit your book. And if that's okay with you, then that's great. If it's not, then I'd highly watch out for that type of thing. Number 7 is genre. Like I said, Fragment is a fantasy novel, and when I was reading through cover letters and bios or even messages, I realized that a lot of people didn't even say that, oh, I like fantasy, or in their when they're listing author, like, ooh, I've edited romance and thrillers and horror. And it's like, I literally put in the job title that this is fantasy, and somehow you did not bother to put the word fantasy in there. Have you edited it before, or you just, like, I thought it was worth putting in there, or at least restating, because at that point I can't tell if you even like my genre or not. I mean, obviously I could ask them, but just be easier if you just put it in there. And another thing I noticed is a lot of people, not that there's anything wrong with the story, but a lot of people didn't even do the simple step of saying, "Oh, I'm really interested in this project because I like the concept or the storyline." So yeah, that was an interesting thing to find out. Number 8 is the pros and the cons of being an author. Okay, so some of the pros that I can automatically think of is that this person is an author. They know exactly what you're going through. They know that you would want whoever is dealing with your book to take their time with it, someone who knows how it is to be attached to the book, and to probably even try to make minimal changes, um, and things of that nature. Now, the cons of hiring an author to edit your work is, for me, I honestly had a lot of thoughts that I did not think were going to happen, and that kind of took me by surprise. Because when I found out that these people were authors, it was like, well, one of my first ones were, shouldn't you be writing your own book then? I'm just trying to be blunt and honest, but that was literally one of my first thoughts. Shouldn't you be writing your own book? Shouldn't you be, editing your own novel? Am I taking away from the time that you could be working into yours? Are you just checking out competition? Because some of these people are also, writers in the same genre. Are you really interested in my project, or are you just doing this to see what other people are writing and what's in trend and what other people's styles and voices are and things of that nature? Are you just checking out the competition, even though it can be argued whether writers and authors like me and you actually have competition because people are allowed to like more than one author? Pros and cons of an author kind of dilly dally because they're like continuously fluctuating. Because before I posted this job, I thought that it would be great to put in a cover letter or proposal that, oh, by the way, I'm also an author, but it's kind of like the teacher thing. A lot of people say that, and then it kind of loses its value or worth in the cover letter. It kind of loses its spunk factor. Like, it's not like, oh, it's kind of like, oh yeah, another person's an author and they want to edit and make a dollar or two. Kind of sucks in. But if you make the decision ahead of time, hiring someone who is also an author is important to you, then you're a step ahead and you can filter out people even more easily than before. Number 9, timing. Specifically for me, I want my novel Fragment edited by March 31st. It's because I want the book to be done already, but, well, March 31st at the latest, but I'm hoping to have it done by February 12th or February 14th. Hello, Valentine's Day. And that's simply because if something goes wrong or my editor can't finish it, I have enough time to hire another editor and pay them for it. I need my book to be edited. I want it to be finished ahead of time. I want to be able to review it as many times as I want before I publish it. It will be published in either late spring or early summer, somewhere between May and July. Like, I'm still working on a date for you. I mean, the quicker the editing goes, then the closer I am to giving you guys an actual date. But yeah, the turnaround time is very vital because if you hire an editor and you're paying them like $800, you don't want to necessarily be giving them that much money for them to only be, going through your 400-page book in 2 weeks. No, I need you to spend as much time as you can. I don't care if you edit it twice. I don't care if you end up editing it 5 times. I want to know that you've edited it, you've taken your time, you've looked through it thoroughly, and you've had time to like take a break from it and come back and look at it again with fresh eyes. That way you don't miss anything. If you're editing my book in 3 days or 2 weeks, I'm kind of skeptical if you're actually catching all the little things that you should be. And if it's consistent with its editing. Are you always using an Oxford comma, or are you just nitpicking things here and there and catching the mistakes that you need to catch? This is not number 10 is not necessarily a tip per se, but this is just something I chose to do because they're editors, and outside of cover design, I would say editing is kind of one of the final stages of having your book written and done right before publication. And since these people are editors, you've sat and you've taken all this time to write or type your entire story. And I know everything that glitters isn't gold per se, but most people say that no one wants to steal your manuscript because it's not edited yet and it's a big fat mess. But since these people are editors, I just want to be cautious because I put a lot of hard work and time into it. So what I did is I kind of got a statement. Some people would call it a NDA maybe, or a non-disclosure agreement. Basically is saying that they won't steal, plagiarize, copy, or I guess permanently alter the work, and they won't talk about it. They won't speak about it before I actually publish it and send it off into the world. It's in the meantime, while you're doing this work, this is specifically between me and you, employer to employee type of thing. Just everything we talk about is between us and not the rest of the world. And you're not going to go like publish it on like Wattpad or something crazy like that because that would be bad. But like I said, that's just an extra precaution that I decided to take. You don't have to do that, but that is what I chose to do. Those are all my tips. Those are my 10 tips of how to choose a freelance editor, especially on Upwork. And Fragment will be published sometime between late spring and early summer. And I cannot wait to share it with you guys. I am very, very excited to send a fragment into the world, and I hope you guys enjoy it. If you like this video, like, share, subscribe. Tell me where you're at with your writing project, and is there anything I missed? Is there anything that's a deal breaker for you when you're looking for an editor? What type of editor do you think is mandatory? What are your experiences with trying to hire an editor? I mean, do you have any funny, crazy, wild stories about hiring an editor? I hope you guys have a nice day. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel.